After many months of hype, anticipation, bickering back and forth with fellow Jets fans, I am finally able to say the New York Jets play football this week, and I am fired up. It is Monday, so that means that my guy, BuffaloJetFan, is going to join me on the channel. He will join me on the other side of it. Let's get into it.
Bring that here, all right? Go up there and press him and choke him out.
What is going on, Jets fans? It's your boy DT back. First of 3 live shows you're going to get on this channel from me, at least this week. Today, I am joined by my buddy, BuffaloJetFan. We are going to be doing the alternating Monday streams. So last week, if you caught us on his channel at BuffaloJetFan, which I'm sure everybody is subscribed to already, this week we're going to do it on my channel. So happy to have Buffalo back on. What's up, man? Appreciate you joining.
Dude, what's going on?
Dude, we're here. We have less than 6 days. It's like 4.5 days until the Jets actually open and play real football, although it's preseason. But we finally made it, dude. We no longer have to bicker. We can finally look at film next week and start evaluating this team for what it's going to be moving forward.
We are. Hey, goes by quick, man. Always does. I'm pumped for the preseason. A lot of younger players to take a peek at for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get into any Packers previews or anything like that, we do have to break down practice today. It was considered the longest practice. AG spoke to the media before practice, a bit of a switch up. They started at 12:45 this afternoon. And I don't know about you, Buffalo, but I got off work early today and I'm refreshing Twitter like I normally do for practice. And the first question I asked was how many beat writers were in attendance, because it felt like for this being the first practice of, lengthy practice from the Jets, there was nobody in attendance tweeting. And maybe it's a formality where they're not allowed to tweet as much because it's a game prep week. But initially, what are your thoughts on not having any tweets to really break down from this practice?
I mean, I'm going to guess that they're probably limited depending on what the coaches allow. Maybe they get different instructions for different practices. I know there's specific things they can't tweet out about who's starting and all of that. So I think the reporters would like to cover and give as much information as they can. I'm sure they're just dictated different stuff by the team as the summer goes along.
Yeah, absolutely. I tried to, I'm refreshing. I see a couple videos from Waz, a couple tweets from Rich saying a couple players aren't practicing. And it felt like Robbie Sabo was giving us the only in-depth look at some of these plays at practice. And I know even Robbie can only go so much into detail, like you said. So I feel like part of it is very team, message to the beat reporters saying like, hey, we can't say who the starters are, or we can't say what the rotation is of this, position. So definitely a bit of encryption with this practice here, but a couple things of note that I did want to touch on. The 2 Taylors today did not practice. Mason Taylor was not spotted at practice with an ankle injury, and quarterback Tyrod Taylor was not in team drills. He was out in a uniform, but he was not in team drills. So already out the gates, Tyrod Taylor, a knee injury in a training camp session where he's really not going to get touched, right? He's wearing the red jerseys. So do you have any concern about either of these new injuries, either Tyrod or Mason, popping up on the report?
No, just because neither seem serious. And with Tyrod, you kind of know that he's injury prone. So you know that if you're going to ask Tyrod Taylor to spot you for more than 3 or 4 games, then you're probably in trouble. So you're hoping that Fields can, go out there and play a minimum of 13, 14 games, because if he misses more than that, you're probably seeing the 3rd string quarterback.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the narrative, right, with Tyrod Taylor. He's not going to get you through much more than a handful of games if you're lucky, honestly. So having Justin Fields be the starter, we really bank on him starting, like you said, 14, 15 games. Tyrod is only a little bit of a spot starter. But because of Fields' past 2 performances at practice where he was a combined 6 of 26. We did the math off air right before we went live. 6 of 26 in the past 2 practices. He went 2 for 10 and then what was it, 4 for 16 today. So what do you have to think about the whole Justin Fields experience so far? It's been a bit of a roller coaster, in my opinion, but everything that came out about Saturday's green and white practice was bad. And then today it seemed like it was better, although the numbers don't quite dictate it. So what do you make of the 6 for 26 past 2 days for Justin Fields?
Well, when the Jets are practicing against each other, there's always a positive and negative take because you can look at that and say, well, the defense is doing great. I want for one of these summers just for the offense to be dunking all over the defense. Just once, so we don't have to do like the whole like, well, the defense is always ahead of the defense is ahead of the offense right now because our defense is going to be better than our offense. That's not surprising to me. Now, what was it? 6 of 20, whatever.
6 of 26, yeah.
That's obviously an outlier, a couple of bad days because you look at Fields. His completed percentage for his career isn't great, but it's still over 60. So it's not like he's going to go 6 for 26 in the regular season. So I don't make much of it. I mean, it gets to a point, I guess, where if that happens for like 2 weeks in a row, you'd be like, all right, what's going on here? But no, I try not to get too high or too low with camp in terms of quarterback stats or is our win total prediction going to change? Not really. It's mostly about, is it going to be Xavier Gibson or Jamal Pritchett? Is it going to be Eric Watts or that's the kind of stuff that us Jet fan nerds we kind of care about that stuff, and those are the kind of decisions that are going to be made. Is Andrew Beck going to make the team, like stuff like that? Now what young guys are going to play a big role, like Kadarian Smith potentially crack wide receiver 3? Those are all interesting things that we can get some information on about as camp goes along. How does Armand Membu look in the preseason? Is everyone healthy? But in terms of the quarterback went this for this, because at the same time, dude, if Fields goes out there in the next 2 practices, he goes 22 of 25, I'm still kind of going to be like, okay, it's not going to move the needle for me too much one way or the other in terms of camp, especially when I didn't even see it. Like if I was there, but you don't really get much detail. Like you said, only from Sabo, all you get is, there was 1 drop and he went 6 for this or whatever, and there were some penalties. So it's not much to analyze there, Yeah,
100%. And even if you count in those drops and the potential deep ball to Al Lazard and Breece Hall that they stepped out of bounds, even though they did complete the catch, they were just out of bounds when they did complete it. It's still looking like a sub 50% completion percentage day for Justin Fields. So like you said, I'm not trying to read too much into the baseline stats of Justin Fields throughout this camp. I'm more interested to hear what the coaches are asking of him practice in and practice out, and if he's actually being able to complete that. I think it's hilarious that we're, jumping to conclusions about this quarterback possibly needing a competition between him and Tyrod Taylor. Some people are even going as far back to say Zach Wilson was really good in training camp and he was really good in the August portions of the season. We know how that turned out with Zach. So if I'm just going to spit out any complete hopium, it would be that Justin Fields isn't good in August, but he could be good in the regular season. But to your point, I'm trying not to get too high or too low on these stats. Like you said, if he went 88% completions one day and he lit the defense up, I'd be happy, but I also wouldn't want to say too much about what I think about his expectations for the season. I've kind of maintained I don't think he's going to break 3,000 passing yards. He might have 25 to 28 total touchdowns. He's going to add a big element with his legs that we saw a little bit on Saturday in the green and white practice. It feels like we're not seeing a ton of the legs yet, and maybe that's for a reason with the coaching staff. But yeah, as far as Fields goes, I'm really not trying to read too much into it. Transitioning that, though, do you think he needs to play in the preseason, whether it's this game, maybe next week, or the 3rd game, I believe, against the Commanders? Do you think he needs to play in any of the 3, if not all of the 3 preseason games?
Yeah. I think the entire first teams on both sides of the ball should get a series or 2 in every single preseason game. Enough of this. We don't need to have Tyron Smith riding a Peloton for 7 weeks and then assuming he's going to be ready to block TJ Watt. They got to be out there now, especially if Fields in the first team offensive line. Yeah, man, they got to play. You want to have Garrett take a one series and then send him out. Okay, fine. But have that offensive line and Fields start to get some continuity. And there's always a balance. There's always a balance between you want guys to stay healthy because if a starter gets hurt in a preseason game, it'll be the easiest thing to do to criticize the coach, but it's unavoidable. You don't want it to be happening in the second half of a preseason game. You don't want to get crazy, but there's a balance between trying to keep everyone healthy and then trying to be prepared to start the season. And I think the previous coaching staff leaned way too much into trying to keep guys healthy. And ironically, it didn't even work. You got neither. We got neither.
Yes.
So it's not even, I think it's a fool's gold to think that you can get that trade-off, because if you're not physically ready to go, you're going to get more likely to be injured if you're not, you don't get to trade paint with some people and kind of get that out of your system instead of going from 0 to 100 in the regular season opener. So yeah, man, I would say at the very least they should play in 2 of the 3 games. And I always don't get how they leave the last game as the dress rehearsal. I'd play the starters a bunch in these first 2 games. And then that last game where you're close to the regular season, where you don't want guys to get hurt because it's less recovery time, have them sit then. But yeah, I definitely don't think that they should get the bubble wrap treatment. I mean, this goes for guys like Allen Lazard. Allen Lazard should play in the preseason. Michael Clemens, Tony Adams. I can think of very few guys who shouldn't play at all in the preseason. Obviously, like Jermaine Johnson, of course. But besides him, I can't really think of another player who shouldn't play. Now, Sauce, Garrett, whatever, Quincy, okay, play him a couple of series. That's it. Quinnen, you probably want to sit for the whole preseason because it's a calf. That's it. Quinnen and Jermaine. Everyone else should suit up at least for 1 rep in the preseason.
Yeah, I completely agree with that take, especially the part about the 3rd preseason game. To me, I understand why they called it the dress rehearsal in the past, but now that you're going down on August 26th from 90 men to 53 men in the span of, just a week. I understand it's the bye week in the preseason, that 4th week. But that 3rd week needs to be for guys on the roster bubble, your 3rd and 4th string guys who are trying to prove to the coaching staff that they can make it. I don't want to see Justin Fields or the starting guys out there against, I think it's the Commanders week 3. I have to understand this for sure. But I know against the Giants and the Packers in weeks 1 and 2, I completely agree. Fields has to play, 2 to 3 possessions in each of those games, if not more, especially in the Giants game. And Brian put in a comment here, so I'll throw it up. He said, play Fields only if the first team O-line is in. I'll even double down a little further and say only if the entire starting team is in. Garrett, Brees, your tight ends, Mason and Ruckert, all those guys, like all those starters need to be in for Fields just to get those reps. Obviously, the offensive line is the most important, but I even want to see Garrett get out there. We saw him against the Giants in preseason with Rodgers, so I don't even think he's on the list of guys that I would keep out during the preseason. To your point about Quinnen, Quincy probably limited, maybe even Sauce a little limited on the defense.
Or Simpson, because I think Simpson's got a back injury.
Exactly. Simpson's a guy like Quinnen. I would not even, rush him back. If you want to, play him in the joint practice next week against the Giants, if he's feeling up to it, okay, but don't put him out in any game situation. So yeah, if Fields is out there, I expect almost the entire first team offense to be out there for every snap of that, because that's the only way he's going to learn. You can't have him out there in front of the second team O-line or, Brandon Smith and Malachi Corley are out there catching passes from him. No, you really need the starters out there. So I'm in agreement there with you about Fields' play. A couple standouts on the day I wanted to talk about. Breece Hall, he had a really big catch down the sidelines. I understand it was ruled incomplete because he caught it, but he was out of bounds. And then he had a pretty good run as well. I understand, AG is really hyping up Breece Hall. He's saying we're going to see a lot of new things from him. He's a guy that you can split out and he can run a whole route tree. They're really honing in on him as a receiving back. So Breece, another kind of weird one this preseason. He has to play, right, because of what he was last year in that quote-unquote down year coming off the knee injury. I think he definitely needs to play too. But what are your expectations just as far as the running back room? I know Braylon Allen is getting a ton of love. Isaiah Davis is flashing in camp, which is huge as your, technically your running back 3. So what is your expectation as a whole, not just for preseason, but going into the regular season for this group?
I think that Breece Hall is going to have the second most receptions on the Jets. I think it's going to go Garrett Wilson, then Breece Hall. They'll probably chop up the running carries a little bit. Allen was really effective in short yardage last year. If Breece looks how he looked last year, then it should be a pretty even split. And even Isaiah Davis, if Breece look, just based on last year's performance, that's the only information I have. I mean, Isaiah Davis might be the best running back on the team. You know what I mean? They were all very comparable. None of them stood out from each other, but that's not all the information I have. I also have seen Breece Hall play long stretches of time where he looked like a top 10 running back in this league. Last year, kind of mid. So I think if this offense is going to approach league average, I think one of the things that has to happen is Breece Hall is back in rookie to 2023 form, and it's not a committee. And he warrants a lion's share of the reps, and he's out there getting, 1,600 yards from scrimmage and double-digit touchdowns from scrimmage, and he Fields and Garrett are just like 75% of the offense like that. Now, maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe it's just okay that last year was who Breece is, and they mix in Allen and Davis, and you could still have an okay running game if you block better and you're schematically better. But if you're going to sell me on the Jets offense, kind of making some noise this year, I think one of the ingredients has to be Breece Hall looking like a top 10 running back again.
Yeah, I'm still in the camp that I believe Breece is going to get at least 60% of the workload. And then Braylon Allen might get you 25 to 30. And then Isaiah Davis gets you that last 10 to 15%. I still think he has enough left in his tank. And the way that they keep talking about him, I think his snap count isn't going to really fluctuate. He's been on the field, primary as like a three down back, really. I know in certain situations last year, like on those 3rd and 17s that we talk about, Isaiah Davis was the best 3rd and 17 rusher to pick up 10 or 11 yards and allow your punt unit to have a little bit more room. But
He's very good at that.
Exactly. But I do think Breece Hall is going to be the workload, the majority of the snaps. And I don't want to read too much into it. It's just a small video that the team put out. But he looks like he's moving a lot better in camp. And with Breece Hall,
is Breece Hall not 15, 20 pounds lighter this year?
So that's what I'm saying. He looks jacked. He looks more muscular, like tone, which would indicate probably, a slimmer weight, but, the muscle just keeps, staying on. So I think he's a little bit lighter, and which would just be more explosion for him. And again, I'm not trying to read too much into it, but that video of him that they posted today, he's moving a lot better. Like when I went back and watched him on film in 2024, after the Titans game, it was different. Like he just did not run the same. It was very hesitant, just trying to get the home run and go. He wasn't trying to pick up those 4 or 5 dirty yards that AG keeps talking about. This year, I feel like he's built more to do that. And again, I'm not trying to overhype the video that I saw. It just looks different with Breece as it did last year. And he was one of the players you could easily tell it was not clicking with him last year in terms of playing at full speed, having the elusiveness, the break tackles that he still had. Like Breece used to be a guy his rookie year and his second year in the league. The safety could take the best angle at him and it wouldn't matter. They still couldn't catch him. And it didn't look like Breece was running fast. He was never caught, right? So I'm really intrigued on Breece. And I think if he's healthy, he should be the guy. Obviously, I'm intrigued about Braylon Allen. He's kind of been in and out of the lineup, right? He had knee soreness a couple days ago. I think he's back at practice, but I don't know if he's doing everything yet. So I do think it's going to be a bit of a committee in a sense, but I would say it's still like 60 to 65% Breece.
I think that's realistic.
Yeah. So the next 2 standouts from practice today, both at the cornerback position. Rich Cimini alluded to this. Sauce Gardner and Brandon Stevens, your 2 starting perimeter corners, having really good days. Sauce, I mean, I don't want to say it's to be expected that every day he's going to have a great day, but you also shouldn't be terribly surprised that Sauce Gardner is having really good days, especially when you consider the defense is ahead of the offense. They're implementing a new offense and trying to install Engstrand's system. So yes, the defense is going to be ahead of them, but Sauce showing out, especially after getting the contract, is great. My focus is mainly on Brandon Stevens. What are your thoughts on Stevens so far in camp? A couple catches against him that were just really excellent offensive catches, and it didn't seem like he did too much wrong. But where's your head at with Brandon Stephens, and what do you think his like outlook is for the season?
I think he'll probably be fine because I think that it's just my Jet fan. I already can kind of see like, oh, Stephens is going to prove the fans wrong, that the defensive coaching staff knew they could fix him. And then Malachi Moore is going to be looking good as like a starting safety. But like Fields is going to be struggling. Arian Smith is going to be inactive on offense. I could kind of see, you could see the dichotomy forming a little bit already. But yeah, it seems like Brandon Stephens has, besides like the first 2 days of practice, has definitely gotten a lot of positive reports and how well he's performing. So that's good. I know there was some early stuff of like, well, AZ Thomas is going to be starting. Like AZ Thomas is not going to be we're not going to see him in September. I mean, AZ Thomas might not even be the primary backup boundary. It might be Stiggers, might be JBC. So yeah, the Jets are not going to put a 21-year-old third round pick out there over a veteran that was the biggest position player free agent that they brought in from another team. So he's going to get some burn. They're going to give Stephens a shot. They clearly see some stuff they like in him. They think he can fix the ball production. It's a big spot though, because if you're another team, you got Michael Carter in the slot, you got Sauce on one side. Like, where are you going? Like he's going to get plenty of targets early. So we'll find out soon. But you like to hear that he's seems to be doing pretty well. I mean, I don't think I've heard anything negative besides like the first 2 days he was getting mossed, and then since then it seems like he's been doing pretty well. I've even seen some clips of him, breaking on passes and having some nice pass deflected. He has a unique little celebration does there too after that. So yeah, seems like pretty good from Stephens so far.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that, Nick Shine comes in with a question. Shout out to you, Nick Shine. Appreciate you tuning in. Glad that you are 9 toes down with the DT YouTube channel. He says, question, is it more our corners having good days, or is it that our wide receiver core is weak? I mean, I think it's a little bit of both, to be fair, right? You have to admit where you're weak, right? I don't think wide receiver is the strongest position group. I had it ranked 7 out of 10 when I did my summer rankings of the positions on the team, whereas cornerback was number 1, right? The starting guys are great. Your depth is great. Even your third string, if you want to consider Quantez or JBC as your quote unquote third string, like those guys are even good too. Like I really think there's a potential for you to trade one of those guys who's not going to make the roster for a late 5th or 6th round pick right at the deadline, because if you cut them, somebody's going to pick them up right away. So I'm really intrigued, watching the cornerbacks and wide receivers, but I do think it's a little bit of both. And as much as I want to hype up the corners, it's like, okay, can we go up against, the Bengals and see what they do against them? Because that's going to be a fun matchup. Or, even the Miami Dolphins with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Like I'm excited for the offenses we're going to face with 2 wide receivers just to see what Brandon Stephens can do. I'm not too worried about Sauce if he's traveling against the number 1 or if he's, locking down one half of the field. I'm not too worried about him. I would say more Stephens, but I do think it's a little bit of both. What is your take on good corners versus bad wide receivers?
For sure, a little bit of both. I think that I would probably rank the cornerback room second behind the offensive line, although I'm sure part of the reasoning was the depth, because the depth at corner I think is probably better than any spot on the team. Like corner is the only position group where they could cut somebody that I would like feel something about, like JBC or Stiggers. I would love to be able to keep both of those guys. So yeah, corner is definitely one of the top 2 position groups on the team. Wide receiver would be one of the not in the top half of the position groups. I don't know exactly where I'd rank them. Do I think that the Jets have another player who can consistently win against man coverage, another receiver that can consistently win against man coverage besides Garrett? No. So they have to have a couple things go their way in order for the pass catching unit to be solid this year. I think it starts with Breece Hall. Again, he's 2 years removed from leading the league in receptions by a running back. So can he do that again? Can he get another, I think it was 74 catches in 2023. Maybe if it's not even that, can he get 65 catches and be elusive after the catch? And then Mason Taylor. Can Mason Taylor, I'm not saying if he doesn't do this, he's a bust or anything like that, but you're looking for things. Where can we find some yards and stuff? Because It ain't going to be Lazard. It ain't figuring out how to catch in year 7. It ain't going to be Corley, like playing a big role on this offense. Let's be realistic. There's only a few spots we can pull from. Brees is one, Mason Taylor is one, and I would say Arian Smith is one. So 2 of those 3 need to really pop. And then okay, then the Jets might be okay. Like if Brees and if it's Brees and Mason Taylor, and their pass catching order is Garrett, Brees, Mason Taylor, Josh Reynolds. Okay, because Josh Reynolds being your second weapon really sucks. Josh Reynolds being your second wide receiver, but your 4th weapon, you could probably live with that. You know what I mean? I kind of judge the pass catching unit as a whole.
Yeah, so I'm trying to pull up Robbie Sabo's tweet because he kind of explained it really well. He was saying that this is going to be an offense that's tailored to do the things that Justin Fields does well. It does not necessarily mean we're going to have 3 to 4 stud wide receivers where no matter what, you don't know who to cover and who's going to get the ball. To your point, you are going to utilize your wide receiver 1. You're going to use your tight end 1. You're going to use your running back out of the backfield. So when you put it in terms of that, I don't want to look at it as just wide receiver 2. I'm looking at it almost as like, who is weapon number 2? And then you get into the conversation, Brees and Mason Taylor are probably going to be above Josh Reynolds. I would almost say Josh Reynolds is closer to Arian Smith in terms of what I expect in terms of like order of weapons than I would say he is to Brees Hall, who I would assume is going to be number 2. Like if Brees Hall has 70 catches and 800 yards receiving, and Josh Reynolds has, maybe 400 yards receiving and 40 catches, that's not going to surprise me. I think this offense is not necessarily based on let's replicate somebody like the Bengals, who I just used as an example before. They have 2 strong wide receivers. You don't know who to double. They're going to double, Garrett Wilson as much as they can, but then you have guys like Arian Smith who's going to take the top off and give you more to look at, who's going to take away from Garrett. Same with Brees and his flexibility of moving him outside and having Braylon Allen in the backfield. So I think it's going to be more of a collection of weapons than just one true wide receiver 2. So I keep calling it like weapons 2, 3, and 4. Who are going to be those guys that line up? And I think that right now it's really just a bunch of guys, unfortunately, after Garrett Wilson. I mean, Mason Taylor, I expect to be somebody, and Brees Hall, we know if he's healthy, he can be somebody. But after that, it's kind of scary hours. And I hope a guy like Arian Smith can come in and get you 350 in the air, maybe 2 touchdowns, one being a really long one where he takes the top off and it looks fun, right? And I think that's on Engstrand too, to scheme up who he has, the personnel he has, the things that, they've talked about this too. They're going to tailor their offense and their defense to their personnel. It's not going to be, hey, square peg, round hole. We want to go run 4-3 and just attack with our front 4, and that's it. If you can't do that, sorry. We're going to, get our linebackers involved. We're going to, bring the safeties and the nickel blitzes and stuff like that. On the offensive side, Engstrand's thinking the same thing. All right, well, I got to cook up this play that's going to scheme open Mason Taylor, or how do I find ways to get Brees that 2-way go from the slot and allow him to cook against linebackers and safeties? So I do think they have their work cut out for them, but it's not a matter of we don't have a wide receiver 2, let's all just panic. It's going to be tailored to what this team does best.
Yeah, I would take, you said 350 for Smith. I would love 350 for Arian Smith because, man, it's been a minute since his team drafted a mid-round weapon that did much. So 350 would be nice for a rookie 4th-round pick. I would take that all day.
And I think it breaks down to like 20-something yards a game, if I'm not mistaken. So like it's really not out of the realm of possibility that he just has that one big catch a game, deep downfield, intermediate to deep parts of the field, and he gets that 20 yards a game. Obviously, it's not going to be consistent 20 yards every game. He could have a game where he has 65, and then he has a game where he doesn't catch anything, So that's going to be the thing to me with this personnel is like base 11 personnel week 1. Who do you think are the 3 wide receivers on the field?
Garrett Wilson, Josh Reynolds, and probably one of Tyler Johnson or Allen Lazard.
Yeah, that's what I say too, is Lazard and Reynolds with Garrett either in the slot, or you have Lazard in the slot And then you got to kind of get creative from there. Arian Smith comes in certain 11 package situations. I don't see Arian Smith being a 12 personnel wide receiver when you only have 2 wide receivers on the field. I don't think it's going to be Garrett and Arian Smith. I think it's going to be Garrett and Reynolds, or Garrett Lazard, and then even Garrett and Tyler Johnson, right? If Tyler Johnson shows the physicality that he's willing to block and do all those things, why couldn't he be your 12 personnel guy? So I do think based on the formations and the personnel packages, we're going to see different guys mixed in and out. But the 21 personnel, when you have either Beck and Brees or Beck and Braylon or Brees and Braylon, like that's the one that I'm really intrigued about, is the 21 personnel. So I think you had Andrew Beck making your 53-man roster projection. What do you think the fullbacks usage is going to be in the offense?
Well, Detroit, and I know it's not a carbon copy, but we don't have anything to go from Engstrand at the pro level as a play caller, and they used one last year, about the league average amount. It was a converted linebacker they used. So I think Beck is going to, and he can play tight end, so he's probably gonna be the tight end 3 / fullback 1. So whether that's be 13 personnel, 21 personnel, or whether there's an injury at tight end, he bumps up to the 12 personnel package. So it could be in the teens of percentage, like he's on the field, I would say. And he's a core special teamer as well. So Beck is a guy who's going to be, we're going to see a bit more of him than I think maybe if a Jet fan who isn't following camp or whatever just tunes on, week 1, they're like, oh, who is Andrew Beck? So I think he'll be around. I would almost consider him. I would be shocked if he doesn't make the team.
100%. Whether you consider him your 5th running back, right? Because I think they're going to keep Nwangu as a returner, or if he's your 4th tight end, I think you can make it work either way. I think you even said it, if you keep a Beck over your 9th offensive or defensive lineman, like if it comes down to Leander Vegan or Andrew Beck, I'm sorry, I'm taking Andrew Beck. We can keep
Vegan on the practice squad for free because he's international.
There you go. Exactly. So you found the loophole, obviously. But I still think, like, in 13 personnel where you have 1 back, 3 tight ends, it's not going to be Stone Smart. It's going to be Andrew Beck, right? It's going to be Mason Taylor, Jeremy Ruckert, and Andrew Beck as your 3 tight ends. That's what I would assume, at least, if you have 2 tight ends lined up attached to the offensive line on the right, 1 tight end to the left, Brees in the backfield, Garrett split out wide. I don't think it's going to be Stone Smart. I think Stone Smart's probably going to be used the least out of that tight end room, if anything. And it's going to be situational, like a power slot. If Allen Lazard comes off the field and you want to run like a pseudo 11 personnel and you have Garrett, Reynolds, and then Smart in the slot and Mason Taylor attached to the offensive line, like something like that. I feel like Stone Smart's going to be not the odd man out, because I think there is a role for him, but I do think Beck will be used more because of his blocking prowess.
I agree. I'm not buying the Stone Smart propaganda. Now, I think he'll crack the roster, but I think he'll probably be like inactive week 1. You know what I mean? I think he'll be on the back burner. It's a very niche skill set. And it's almost kind of what Allen Lazard does as that power slot. He has a similar build to Lazard. If they want to play him over Lazard, sure. I'm open to that. But it's tough if you can only do – it's tough if you can't block. And I think tight end blocking was one of the more underrated reasons of why this team was bad last year. We know who was the kid's name? Bates.
Yeah, Brendan
Bates. Brendan Bates. I swear you could. I know it was a game where Greg Z missed 3 kicks and Aaron Rodgers threw 3 interceptions, but dude, I'm telling you, we would have won the Vikings game if we didn't play Brendan Bates. It was he
missed so many blocks.
He single-handedly killed the run game. So, and obviously Conklin was a serviceable receiver, but he couldn't block either. And Rucker, that just hasn't been coached up at an NFL level. So that was really bad last year. The non-offensive lineman blocking, which those are the kind of things that teams that have attention to detail do well. Their corners tackle, their wide receivers block. And the Jets really, all those kind of detail-oriented things that are the small things that don't show up on the stat sheet, the Jets were bad at last year. So I would say, yeah, man, a guy like Beck, to me, is going to play more than a guy like Smart.
Yeah, and I'm not blaming anybody who made a Brendan Bates film breakdown, but Jets fans were so excited when they added Brendan Bates because we thought he was going to be the blocker. and it was like almost immediate. You knew that he was just not a blocker. So
Well,
very
yeah, I remember because
unfortunate.
he had the best run blocking grade in the preseason.
Mhm.
And then we're like, oh, we're getting a run blocking tight end. And he was the worst blocking tight end I've ever seen.
Dude, he was absolutely abysmal. Yeah, like you said, if not for Greg Z missing those kicks, everybody would have been looking at Bates's missed blocks because it was way more than 3. It was in more crucial situations too. Like you
I
can't
never
come
say anything
out
like it.
and open the game and just miss a block on a sniffer on an inside run where you have the sniffer coming across and he's supposed to crack down on the end man line of scrimmage. You just can't have those simple mistakes. And no wonder Aaron Rodgers hands the ball off, turns around, sees Breece Hall tackled 2 yards in the backfield, and then checks out of pass plays for the next, 25
We're never
minutes of
doing
the
that
game.
again.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you have Brendan Bates type players out there and the combination of Keith Carter as your offensive line coach and as much as I like the personality, Ron Middleton did not get the best out of this group. So
Yeah,
the
Ron
fact
Middleton
that
is the most overrated position coach in NFL history because he had
he
that
had
one good line at the Senior Bowl.
I was gonna say he had one good week down at the Senior Bowl where he just made headlines. He's on the float throwing the beads to the ladies, and he's like, "Are we gonna show some skin for the beads?" Like
I
that
don't
was
remember
Ron
that.
Middleton's.
I don't remember that.
That was Ron Middleton's moment in my when I
Okay.
think back on Middleton. But yeah, the hit it and all that stuff, like that was all well and good, but we
Everybody
didn't
wants
see
to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die.
I literally have that T-shirt hanging in my closet, like it's Ron
You
Middleton's
enabled him.
face. I did. I hand up. I was bad, and I thought he should have been retained until I saw just absolutely no development. Right, Rucker got worse, and the combination of Steve Hayden and our new tight ends coach, who I'm blanking on here, I'll pull it up in my notes. Why am I blanking on his name? Jeff Blasco. That's why, because it's such a new name. Steve Hayden and Jeff Blasco. These guys, like, they're gonna have to work to get these guys, the tight ends and the offensive line, blocking up front properly, because we'll know almost immediately, right? When we go back and turn on the all 22 of the Steelers game, if these guys aren't hitting their landmarks, getting up to the second level to the Mike linebackers, they're doing like dumb shit up front, quite frankly, like we'll know right away because it'll be a mirror image of what happened last year. So that's the part where I'm looking for the tight ends helping the offensive line up front in the run blocking game. So with that, we can turn it over to the unofficial depth chart that the New York Jets themselves released yesterday. And I put out a couple thoughts on Twitter, and then I did a small video about it yesterday. For those who can't see it on YouTube, we'll obviously talk about it, not position by position, but we'll go through it. Did you have anything that immediately stuck out to you that said, "Uh-oh, this is raising a red flag"? A lot of people point to maybe AZ or I believe it was even Corley and like his positioning in the depth chart. But what stood out to you the most about the unofficial depth chart?
Well, I like the DTereman version. This is clean. You cleaned it up nice here. So
I appreciate it.
yeah, man. In terms of anything that is super shocking, I don't think so. And obviously, all the rookies are always going to be lower. All the rookies, they're and like Mason Taylor was listed as tight end 2 behind Rucker. I don't think that's going to happen. Smith behind Corley. I think that's probably not real. But I think that if you look at number 1, like Xavier Gibson's going to be here, right? Xavier Gibson seems to be competing against Xavier Gibson for the punt returner, kick returner spot. So I think from that perspective, again, I don't think this tells us who's going to be starting, who's going to be playing how many snaps, how many games the Jets are going to win. That we don't know anything about that, but and then like Ruckert's not going to go from tight end 1 on their unofficial depth chart to off the team. So like Ruckert's a lock. Gibson's probably going to make the team. Max Mitchell's probably going to make the team. Carter Warren is kind of on. Like Max Mitchell being ahead of Carter Warren, to me, that probably means that he's ahead of Carter Warren. I thought it was interesting that Isaiah Oliver was listed as a safety and not a corner because he played nickel corner for the Jets last year. He played nickel corner under Steve Wilks in 2023. So he can play both. I think he would be. I think Isaiah Oliver is the first like defensive back off the pine. Like if it's an injury to Michael Carter or it's a safety, that's nice. You can back up either a safety spot or a nickel. But I thought that was interesting to listen to that safety. Again, like Tony Adams and Malachi Moore means nothing to me because flip a coin. Only thing that's a bummer is Malachi Moore is hurt, so that might leave him a little behind in the playbook and everything like that. So Tony Adams might have a lot, but again, Tony Adams gonna be on the team, right? Michael Clemens gonna be on the team.
Yeah,
like Max Mitchell gonna be on the team. So Alan Lazard gonna be on the team. You know, Tyler Johnson gonna be on the team. So I don't know, man. I feel like and even when you heard Steve Wilkes talk about the defense, he was like, yeah, here's who's going to be on the team on the defensive line. It was, like Jay Tefele, Big J. It was Byron Cowart, who we know is probably going to start next to Quinnen. Your guy, Mathis. Mathis is having a good summer, Dylan. Telling you,
sneaky summer for Mathis, bro.
And Wilkes mentioned Peyton Page. So Peyton Page seems to be ahead in the UDFA nose tackle running with Fatorma Moba. Only thing I don't know, do you know if they're giving, let me say his name right, Okorafor?
Yes.
Are they giving Okorafor? Is he playing left tackle? Do you know?
So obviously they only put each person's name once in the depth chart.
Right, so you don't get a sense of if he's a swing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was the backup right tackle, and then Mitchell was the backup left tackle with Carter Warren as the third string left tackle. My hope is that they don't put him at left tackle. Like, honestly, based on, his, we'll call it experience at left tackle with the New England Patriots for however short-lived that was, literally a cup of coffee. I don't know if I love him being the first guy off the bench. So I thought it would be Carter Warren, and that was going to be the first spot I went to, was Max Mitchell being named the backup left tackle. I would hope that Chooks is not the swing tackle. I just don't think he's cut out for it. He needs to, play where he's comfortable and had, 51 starts banked with the Pittsburgh Steelers at right tackle. So I would hope that Okorafor is strictly on the right side if something happens to Membu. So yeah, Mitchell and Warren was the first spot I was going to point out. So I'm glad you said it. Malachi Moore is injured. You're right. He has the oblique strain. AG said he could return to practice this week, which would be huge for him because he can't miss. Rookies missing time is detrimental. It's like every week missed is like a month because they're learning so much on the fly that I hope Malachi comes back this week. But to your point about Isaiah Oliver, I loved when Wilkes said, yeah, just keep him at safety. And if we need to, he can play nickel and we can roll. Like, I forget which one of the beat writers said on a podcast spot they did, whenever they break for individual position drills, they do a specific slot cornerback grouping, right? And the only two players in that group are Michael Carter and Jordan Clark. So Isaiah Oliver is not even participating with slot corner drills. He is a true safety first. But to your point, I 100% agree. He is like your 6th or 7th defensive back that just allows for more versatility. If he can come in and be your backup nickel, even if he could be your 3rd safety and Malachi Moore is your 4th safety, it's not the end of the world, right?
And he plays specials. Isaiah Oliver is a great roster spot.
Yes, he is one of the best depth players, and
he's what we wanted. Who is that dude? Who is that athletic backup defensive back that we were banging the table for, but he got injured, and then I never heard of him again. Oh, it's gonna kill me, dude. You're gonna you remember the name?
Not Trey Dean.
No, although we had. Oh my god, I forgot about Trey Dean. Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun month.
He was on the team last year.
Yeah, no, he was on I think he was on camp in 2023.
Okay. It's gonna kill me until yeah. All right, cool.
Continue with the show, but I will find it in the background.
So
sorry,
Isaiah Oliver being that kind of tweener position really gives me confidence in the group. You mentioned it, defensive tackle, Big J. I hate that we give nicknames or the coaches give nicknames to guys that like we don't even want to make the roster. Like when he called the other guy, he was like, Clem is having a fantastic camp. I'm like, don't nickname the guy. Like he shouldn't even make the team, but we're now nicknaming these guys. So Big J being listed as like I guess we'll call him second line defensive tackle behind Quinnen Williams. You have Quinnen and Byron as your starters on paper, and then Tufele and Nadi as your backups with Leonard Taylor and then Fedarian Mathis as your 3rd strings. I'm surprised. I would have loved to see Leonard Taylor or Fedarian Mathis one step up higher, but Derek Nottie to me is such a controversial like slot right now because Rich Cimini didn't have him making his 53-man roster prediction, but he's also listed as the second defensive tackle up, behind Cowart. So I'm really confused about his positioning in the depth chart. And then one that I had to shout out because I loved seeing it, Marcelino McCreary-Ball listed as your number one linebacker 3, we'll call it. I know that's a jumble of words. Your number one linebacker 3 in front of Jamin Davis. I thought Jamin Davis would kind of be the shoe-in as your base 4-3 third linebacker. Looks like Marcelino McCreary-Ball is going to get a chance, and he's another guy who played a significant amount of special teams last year too. So I'm intrigued to see just how that linebacker 3 position shakes out. But for the most part, all of my concerns, or not even concerns, my intrigue comes from the second level, right? It's not the starters because I'm never really worried about the starters. We know who they are, even if they're not listed like Mason Taylor is as the second string. It's really the guys at the second level, like the Xavier Gibsons of the world, who are listed in that second tier where I'm really intrigued to see if they can bump up or if do they bump down because of these preseason games.
Yeah, Nottie. Well, I think with Nottie, how many defensive tackles can you roster that are only run stuffers? So that's what it comes down to. Maybe if they only want, if they see Cowart as that guy who can kind of do a little bit of both and be the primary guy next to Q, and then they see Jay Tefele as a guy who could back up both spots, which it seems like they do. They think maybe Leonard Taylor is a pass rushing specialist. Peyton Page is the rotational run stuffing nose tackle. Is there a spot for that? Like, you're not going to keep 6 defensive tackles. So at what point, do you just run out of room for Nottie? Although quieter camp for Leonard Taylor is a player that I thought maybe would be getting a little bit more buzz. Not that it means, the end of the world, but just with the lack of additions, like significant capital allocated to that position. Like Leonard Taylor was a player you're like, oh, maybe he can have a more of a breakout, but not seeing a ton from him.
Yeah, do you remember, like, this was like minutes after the draft ended, Leonard Taylor immediately went on X and posted a video of him working out, and it gave like the idea that he's going to be able to fight for a spot. So it is a little upsetting to see him down there as like the 5th or 6th defensive tackle. I guess like the bright side or the silver lining that I'm trying to look for with this defensive tackle rotation is kind of like wide receiver, right? They're going to have their 11 personnels, their 12 personnels. They're going to mix in guys like Arian Smith or potentially Malachi Corley, even if he makes the roster, obviously Gibson. Can they do the same thing on the defensive line, right? Like you have your base down guys in Quinnen and Byron, but then like you said, when you have the run stuffing downs, are they able to bring in, guys all the way down to like Peyton Page, and then true pass rush situations, can you bring in a guy who flashed like Taylor the third? So I'm hoping that they can do a bit of, situational stuff with the defensive tackle 2, 3, and 4, kind of like wide receiver. But yeah, it is a little interesting. What would you say right now? How many defensive interior players do they keep?
Quinnen, Cowart, Tefele, 5.
Well, yeah, that's the number I come to.
But dude, if it's only 4, I think Leonard Taylor would be the odd man out.
Yeah, if it's 4, I would say Tufele, Cowart, and Nottie get up with Quinnen, and then you have Fedarian Mathis, Leonard Taylor the third on the outside looking in, and with Page. The 2 UDFAs.
Yeah. So I honestly don't know. I don't know, man. Defensive tackle go a lot of ways. I think Quinnen and Cowart to me is a lock. And then from there, I think they like Tefele. They like the veteran in Tefele. They like that he can play both spots. And then after that, it could go a lot of ways after those 3. Yeah, I really hope there's not enough names on there to keep Leonard Taylor off the roster, in my opinion.
100%. And I did the breakdown of him. It's honestly my most successful video on the channel still, but nice. I saw enough flashes. I watched all 260 or 270 of his snaps, not just the 140 pass rush snaps where he graded out as like the 34th best defensive interior player last year, according to PFF. But it is the consistency factor with Leonard Taylor. I still think, in gotta have it 3rd and 8, 3rd and 6 plus situations, he could be that guy. So it's going to be interesting to see how that breaks down. And although we didn't have a ton of, love for what they did this offseason at the position, I still think they're going to come away with 3, 4, 5 guys they feel really, confident in having on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think with a lot of the players that I think when you look at this roster construction, like guys like I think Rashad Weaver has got a shot. I think Stone Smart and Byron Cowher, like a lot of these guys that they signed that were like, who the F is this guy? I think they clearly have roles and spots for these guys. So I think I could tell you 51 of these 53, Dylan Terman. Who knows? Maybe they'll surprise us, but
yeah, for those listening, next week after I think next Tuesday is what I'm going to do my 53-man roster prediction. I wanted to get one preseason game of film through and then kind of pick my guys. But to your point, it feels like, and this has kind of been the case, right, since Rodgers came here in 23, it seems like 48 of these spots are kind of solidified, and it's really just picking the last couple guys. I know maybe there's a different position here or there that we're, concerned about. Maybe it's the depth at wide receiver or D tackle. Do they keep more D ends than we think? I think they might honestly go light at defensive end, not make an addition, and just hope for the best until Jermaine Johnson comes back. So it is kind of interesting to see how the 53 is going to unfold, but I am going to do the predictions next week, next Tuesday on this channel here. So definitely stay tuned for that. All right. My next, I guess, position group that I was looking at, obviously Clemens is listed as the starter with Watts and McGregor behind him at D end opposite of Will McDonald. Do you think if Jermaine is healthy to enter the season that one of Watts or McGregor is not on this team or on the initial 53?
Yeah, I don't see both of them making it. And if I had to pick one, I think they would lean towards Watts because he's already demonstrated that in a small sample size, he was an adequate run defending edge. So I think he's at least got that. And he has that crazy size profile that Aaron Glenn really likes in his defensive ends. He's, in the 90th plus percentile in height, arm length, hand size, weight, just a giant dude. And then I think McGregor is probably more for the practice squad. And I think someone like Weaver that they, selectively made sure was on the roster or was in camp rather, will probably make it. And I also think somebody like Jamin Davis, who they might see as a Sam like rush linebacker hybrid, who might take. I think I just looked it up recently. I think Jamin Davis in his career, I think it's around 15% of his snaps are at edge. So,
oh, okay, wow.
If he's doing that, then maybe they keep 5 linebackers, but their 5th linebacker is a linebacker who also is going to play, 10-12% of the snaps at edge. And then, okay, that's the reps that a guy like McGregor might have played. And now you don't keep that guy,
Yeah, no, that's definitely fair. And I would agree, Watts over McGregor. McGregor's just had a really quiet camp. I think he had one play here or there that stood out to me, but then Eric Watts, I feel like he's made a couple more plays than McGregor has so far. Obviously, I think McGregor still has a chance to come back on the practice squad, but I do think that they actually really like Eric Watts as that right now edge 2 behind Michael Clemens. But obviously, when Jermaine's healthy, they bump down one spot. And then if you have like Eric Watts and Tyler Barron as your third string edges, and then you have Rashad Weaver and Michael Clemens as your backup edges with McDonald and Jermaine as your top line guys, I think that's a pretty healthy rotation. Obviously, you have to see what Barron still can give you, but it seems like everybody at the position, including Michael Clemens, has flashed this camp. So although the names and the depth there doesn't really inspire a ton of confidence, I do think this coaching staff and how they feel about the defensive line versus the fan base and outside perception, it's just a disconnect. And we're going to have to, figure out who's right. And I keep coming back to, I would rather be wrong if it means the team is right. You know what I mean? So I can be right about a player and they could be wrong about a player, and it doesn't matter. I can sit up here all I want and go, oh, yeah, I love this guy. They should have listened to me. It doesn't matter. As long as the team gets it right, I'm okay with disconnecting on how I see players.
Healthy way to be doing, Terman.
I appreciate it. So I guess the next segment here we'll spend a couple minutes on the Packers game this upcoming weekend. I know we talked about what we expect as far as like field starting, this and that. I'm more focused on what AG said today. Are they able to create their identity and advantage in the football game? And we don't know, obviously, what that's going to look like. We can assume, a blitz heavy man scheme defense, a run first offense that, features a couple guys in the pass game. What do you think from these three, elements of the game are you most excited to see? Physicality, game management, and roster management from Aaron Glenn and staff?
I would say physicality, just because from a game management perspective, like you're not gonna. I mean, teams might even let the clock run out if they're down. Like they don't even care, And then it's a lot of third stringers and fourth stringers out there. But just the intensity that's you want to see a team tackle well, and not commit penalties. I think tackling and penalties is one thing that is kind of typically your whole roster kind of is good at that or not. So that would be the one thing from a team perspective in preseason in terms of if they win or lose. I remember the Jets hung a 37-0 victory on the Panthers, like whatever, a year or two ago. Didn't mean much at all, but that'd be one thing I'll point to. And there's a lot of guys I'm excited to watch. Like I'm excited to see a second half of Corley and Arian Smith out there, man, and catching passes from Brady Cook. The skill guys. Isaiah Davis is going to look like Eric Dickerson against those future union workers there in the fourth quarter. Leonard Taylor is a big one for him. The young defensive linemen, Taylor Watts, Malagoa, Barron. Like this team the roster is so differently constructed from last year, where last year was just like the guys who are on the pine, like Rodgers wasn't going to play, Reddick didn't exist, Tyron Smith wasn't going to play, Morgan Moses wasn't going to play, Mike Williams working his way back. But now almost half your roster is kind of guys who are fighting to prove themselves. So it should be interesting preseason.
Yeah, the physicality is definitely going to be an emphasis of like watching for me. Is like, do they come out wanting to hit guys? Do they slow up before they make contact? Things of that nature. I want to see good form. Like Connor Rogers always uses the term "come to balance" when he talks about tackling, especially with cornerbacks. And I want to see guys, even like Sauce, just come to balance and make a clean form tackle. So physicality is definitely what I'm going to look at. To your point, yes, game management, it's a little bit more, fluid, right, when they're in the preseason games because, they could be, in the second half and they don't want to run the 2-minute drill, or in the fourth quarter, they don't want to run that 4-minute offense. But I think for the most part, we're going to see AG handle those situations well. We're going to see a lot of adversity for the offensive and defensive coordinator. I think Wilkes will probably handle it better than Engstrand will, but those are the things with like game management to me. Like, how does Engstrand handle third downs? I want to know, like, in third and short, are they going to come out and look like they're going to run it, but then run a play action off of it? And then the roster management, I'm more intrigued about, because how much of a snap count are you putting on your starters? How much time do the second guys get to play? Like, how much is Isaiah Davis running all over these future accountants of the world? So I guess from those three avenues or elements, I'm really excited to see how the coaching staff adjusts. But I do think they're going to handle it in stride. I don't think there's going to be a ton of hiccups. Yeah, you said it, discipline and penalties is going to be a big one to watch. Do guys get taken off the field? Like we saw with Ruckert, he committed the false start in team period. He was immediately yanked off the field. So I want to see just how AG handles a little bit of game day adversity. But yes, for the most part, you can't tell a ton of game management things. I did like his quote today about game management and how all the way back starting in 2021, Dan Campbell would put him and Ben Johnson into situations and see how they reacted to different, looks by the defense or different situations in the football game. So I love that AG kind of has a good grasp of situational football. He said he's going to lean on his game management coach, John Berger, quite a bit. But these are things that Saleh never really talked about. I don't know if I ever heard Saleh utter the words 4-minute offense. I just don't think he ever said those words. They're just not in his vocabulary. So to hear AG talk about the 2-minute offense, the 4-minute offense, and getting his team ready for these situations. It just goes to show he's all around a CEO type head coach. What we thought we were going to get from Saleh, more especially towards the back end of the season or his career with the Jets, I thought he was going to be more of a CEO. So from those three perspectives, I'm really excited to see this coaching staff. He said it himself. He doesn't care about the score. I don't think I care about the score either, unless it's like 54-0, the Jets get drubbed, and it's like we look like complete shit. So I guess other than that, what are your just like overall expectations? What do you want to see out of this team on Saturday?
Come look prepared, high energy, good tackling, no sloppy penalties. And an Arian Smith touchdown, man. Jets Nation needs
in the
we
veins,
need an
man.
touchdown, man. We got to get it. We got to get a drafted mid-round pass catcher who just exists. So Arian Smith existing would go a long way.
Oh man, from your lips to God's ears, I'll use one of Jake's phrases. I would love to see an Arian Smith touchdown. I think he's a polarizing player. Obviously, every catch is under the magnifying glass for him. If he catches it, he's going to be, we're making his mold for Hall of Fame and Canton. And then if he drops a pass, it's like, I told you we should have got Tyquan Thornton or whoever the guy with
bad drop, man, it's going to be brutal.
Oh, it's going to be so brutal the second he has his first drop. I guess that's really it as far as the preview. Like I said, there's not too much to really analyze with the game upcoming. I think this practice week is going to really give you like a sense of like how weeks are going to go in the regular season, if that makes sense. Like AG didn't announce if the starters were going to play. I don't think that's like he did it on purpose, right? He's going to wait until the last minute to tell you that the starters are or are not playing. And I think that that's going to be a trend for AG this year, right? We're not going to see him give out a ton of info on injuries. You're just going to see it come up on the injury report and the severity of these things. He's not going to lie to us and say it's a day-to-day injury, and then we see him 4 months later making his debut in December. So I think AG is going to kind of keep things close to the vest, but this is going to be a good precursor to the regular season as far as how much information he puts out during the week of prep.
Flea flicker, first play, baby.
Oh, if Tanner Engstrand comes out and
bust out the bag.
Dude, if Tanner Engstrand does any trick plays, that would be incredible. Like, especially if it
ladder to Armand Membu.
Oh my God. Especially if it's not the first team offense. Could you imagine if he had like Adrian Martinez running a reverse pass to Malachi Corley, and then it's like a throwback, and then he hits Arian Smith for 60 yards. Like, I want to see Engstrand at least get in his bag one time. And
is Xavier Newman going to be the new Sally? Is Xavier Newman goal line fade? No, okay, Jay Tefele.
Over under 0.5 red zone targets for defensive linemen. Go.
Under. We are going to be
the under. We have too many potential weapons on offense to have that problem now. So no Solomon Thomas at the goal line, please. No Tyler Conklin tight end sneaks, please. Like, just use your guys how they're supposed to be used, and we should come out of here with a clean game. Obviously, you hope for no injuries, but you can't guarantee that. That's the reason we tackle, right? We have these padded practices so you can get used to getting hit, and once you get into the game situations, you're not soft and opening yourself up to injuries. So with that, we just hit the hour mark. BJF, I'll let you plug your channel now. Obviously, I would assume almost everybody in here knows about your channel, but please plug away as we do this alternating Monday thing. I wrote in my book, BJF home or BJF away, so that I know whose channel it's on moving forward.
Yeah, man. So we'll be back at it. My home turf next week. BuffaloJetFan, YouTube. Come by. We talk about the Jets, and eventually in the back half of streams, lots of other random things, life advice. I don't know, whatever you want. We talk about.
I heard somebody called you the best Jets monologuer on YouTube, and I do think you do a good job of it. How you interact with your chat, I do think you do a really great job. So appreciate everybody tuning in. For BuffaloJetFan, I am Dylan Tereman. Hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe if you're new. We're on the road to 1,000. We're, I think, less than 20 away from 600 subs. So if we could get to 600, you know, by the end of this week, I think the climb to 1,000 is just going to be that much easier. You guys are an amazing community. Every single person in the chat here, including you, Alan, I do appreciate everybody tuning in. And until next time, let's go Jets.